I never imagined that a work trip could ruin everything I had built. My name is Olivia, and I'm 34 years old. Looking back, I now see how delicate my so-called perfect world was. How one reckless choice could destroy years of marriage, trust, and the carefully maintained image of our life. Nathan and I had been married for 11 years. From the outside, we seemed like the perfect suburban couple. 2 kids, a charming Tudor-style home in a peaceful neighborhood. He had a corporate job, and I managed our home. But what people didn't see were the cracks beneath the surface. I've always been impulsive. Not in a dramatic way, but in small, thoughtless moments where I made choices without fully considering the consequences. A sudden online shopping spree, booking a last-minute girls' trip, or, in this case, a work conference that turned out to be anything but professional. Our children, Lucas, who was 8, and Sophie, who was 5, had no idea how much their world was about to change. They were my everything, yet somehow, in a single moment of weakness, or what I convinced myself was just excitement, I forgot that. The conference was in Chicago, or at least, that's what I told Nathan. I had been feeling trapped, stuck in the endless cycle of suburban motherhood, and I wanted something, anything, that made me feel like the person I was before kids, before the endless laundry, school lunches, and PTA meetings. What began as a playful conversation with a man I met at the hotel bar quickly escalated into something far more serious. I knew it was wrong. I knew exactly how wrong it was. But in that moment, I didn't care. The weeks after Nathan discovered my affair were a blur of tension, silent treatments, and hushed arguments when the kids weren't around. He was methodical about everything, gathering financial records, consulting with a divorce lawyer, planning his next move. I never realized how vulnerable I was until then. Being a stay-at-home mom meant I had no real income of my own. Every dollar came from Nathan, every credit card, every bill, every grocery trip. Everything was in his name. I had been so focused on keeping up the illusion of our perfect life that I never stopped to think about what would happen if that life crumbled. By then, Adam was long gone. The thrilling moments in Chicago felt like a distant memory. He had no interest in a messy divorce, 2 kids, or a complicated situation. Men like him are great for excitement, but terrible when it comes to dealing with consequences. Nathan had always been a good provider, a reliable, hard-working investment banker who put in long hours, but ensured we never lacked anything. But reliability wasn't exciting. Stability didn't make my heart race. Adam, the man from the hotel bar, was different. He was 39, a freelance photographer with effortless charm, the kind that made me feel alive again. When he looked at me, I wasn't just Nathan's wife or the mom who always remembered snack duty. I was Olivia, desirable, interesting. That first night, I told myself it was just drinks, just a harmless conversation. But we both knew where it was leading. The chemistry between us was undeniable. That night, I made a choice that I knew would change everything. I never planned on Nathan finding out. Whoever does, I thought I was being careful. I used burner apps, created fake email accounts, deleted every message. But something in my behavior must have raised his suspicions. The night everything collapsed, I was folding laundry when Nathan walked in. His face was different, calm, yet carrying a cold intensity one had never seen before. "We need to talk," he said. Those 4 words are never a good sign in a marriage. He had tracked my phone. He knew about the hotel. He knew about Adam. Somehow, he had screenshots, messages, undeniable proof of everything. In an instant, the carefully crafted lie I had been living crumbled into nothing. "How long?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I couldn't even look at him. The kids were watching cartoons in the next room, unaware that a bomb was about to explode in our family. Nathan started sleeping in the guest room. The kids sensed something was off, but we kept up appearances. Family dinners became silent affairs, with Lucas and Sophie chatting away, completely unaware of the disaster that was about to hit their world. One morning, I found a stack of papers on the kitchen counter, divorce documents, neatly arranged, precise, just like Nathan. He had already spoken to a lawyer, already mapped out custody arrangements, and figured out how our assets would be divided. That was the moment I realized how badly I had misjudged everything. My reckless affair, my assumption that I could chase excitement without facing the consequences. Everything was falling apart. The most terrifying part? I was completely dependent on the very man whose trust one had shattered. My mother had always warned me about taking things for granted. Never put all your eggs in one basket, she used to say. I had rolled my eyes, convinced I had everything under control. Now, those words echoed in my mind like a cruel reminder of how blind I had been. Nathan was meticulous. He had already spoken with our financial advisor, frozen our joint accounts, and was systematically securing his assets. I learned the hard way that I had no personal credit history. Years of being a stay-at-home mom had made me financially invisible. The kids started sensing the tension. Sophie began drawing heartbreaking family pictures, ones where Nathan and I stood apart, separated by wide gaps. Lucas became quieter, withdrawn. I knew I wasn't just destroying my marriage. I was tearing apart our entire family's foundation. Adam was nothing more than a distant memory now. Those stolen moments in Chicago felt like a foolish fantasy. He had no interest in complications, no desire to be involved in a mess like mine. Men like him thrive on excitement, but crumble when faced with real-life consequences. Nathan served me the divorce papers at breakfast, right in front of the kids. His calmness was more terrifying than rage. Cold, calculated. He had already hired the best divorce attorney in the county, and I was about to learn just how completely I had miscalculated everything. "I want full custody," he said quietly, while the kids played in the other room. "Your indiscretion changes everything." That word, indiscretion, made my affair sound like nothing more than a minor mistake, but we both knew it was so much more than that. My first meeting with Nathan's lawyer was a brutal wake-up call. I sat there, feeling exposed and insignificant as they discussed my life like I was some kind of liability. My financial ignorance became painfully clear. I knew nothing about our investments, real estate, or even the basic details of our accounts. Nathan had always handled everything, and I had been content living in a bubble of comfortable suburban luxury. "You'll need to get a job," Nathan said matter-of-factly during one of our rare conversations. The words hung in the air like a challenge. I hadn't worked a real job in over 9 years. My last professional role had been a part-time marketing assistant position before Lucas was born. The kids were struggling. Sophie would randomly burst into tears, asking why Daddy was sleeping in a different room. Lucas started getting into trouble at school, picking fights, and shutting down emotionally. I knew this was my fault, but admitting it, truly facing it, was something I couldn't bring myself to do. My family wasn't exactly supportive. My sister, Anna, was the only one who still spoke to me. "You made your bed," my mother had said coldly when I reached out to her for comfort. "Now you have to lie in it." Nathan was relentless. He had secured a top-tier divorce attorney, started gathering evidence, and was preparing for a custody battle that would leave me with minimal time with the kids. The weight of reality crushed me. My impulsive affair, those thrilling nights in Chicago, had been nothing more than a fleeting escape, and now they were costing me everything I had ever known. The following months were a harsh lesson in survival. Nathan documented my every move, collecting anything that could be used against me: text messages, bank statements, social media activity. Nothing was off limits. Desperate, I reached out to Adam, hoping for some kind of support, but he had vanished. Ghosted me completely. Those passionate nights in Chicago now felt like a distant, almost humiliating memory. Men like him are experts at temporary excitement, but they disappear when faced with real-life consequences. The financial reality hit me the hardest. I had spent years indulging in online shopping, expensive vacations, and designer clothes, without ever truly understanding where the money came from or how it was managed. Nathan had always taken care of the finances, and I had been perfectly happy living in my safe, comfortable bubble. Then came my first job interview, a part-time marketing position that wouldn't even cover childcare costs. The interviewer, a woman in her mid-40s, glanced at my resume with thinly veiled judgment. 9 years of being just a mom had erased my professional identity. Sophie started having nightmares. She would wake up crying, asking why Mommy and Daddy weren't sleeping in the same room. Lucas became more distant, his school grades slipping. I knew I was the reason our family was falling apart, but admitting it was something I wasn't ready to face. Nathan was strategic. He had already hired a top-tier divorce attorney, positioning himself as the stable, responsible parent. Every move he made was carefully calculated to limit my time with the kids. The most terrifying part? I was completely reliant on the very man I had betrayed. The courtroom felt like another world, cold and lifeless. Nathan sat across from me, looking as if he had been carved from stone. Our entire marriage was being dissected, every mistake, every moment of weakness laid out for a stranger in a black robe to decide my future. The mediator, a stern woman in her early 50s, kept glancing at me with a mix of disappointment and pity. I could almost hear her thoughts. Another reckless woman who threw away a stable marriage for a fleeting thrill. Nathan's lawyer presented evidence like a prosecutor in a criminal trial. Bank statements exposing my impulsive shopping habits, screenshots of deleted messages, hotel receipts from Chicago. Each document felt like another nail in the coffin of my credibility. Mrs. Bennett, the mediator said, her voice firm. Can you explain why you believe you should have joint custody of the children? I hesitated. The truth was, I had no strong argument. My affair, my financial recklessness, my lack of a stable career, all of it worked against me. Nathan sat there, composed and unshaken. His lawyer had built a case that portrayed me as an unstable, unfaithful mother who could potentially harm the children's emotional well-being. And the worst part, a lot of it was true. My sister, Anna, was the only one who truly understood the deeper layers of my situation. It wasn't just the affair, she told me later. It was years of feeling invisible, of losing yourself in a marriage where you had no identity, but understanding didn't change reality, and the consequences of my choices were about to become painfully real. The final court hearing felt like a blur. Nathan stood calm and steady while I felt like I was suffocating. The judge's decision cut through me like a knife. Limited visitation, supervised visits, and a requirement to prove my stability through therapy and steady employment. I lost almost everything. Our beautiful Tudor-style home would be sold. Nathan was granted primary custody of Lucas and Sophie. I would only see them every other weekend under supervision. The life I had once known was now in ruins, destroyed by my own hands. Adam was long gone. No support, no reassurance. Just another chapter in my reckless decisions. Those stolen moments in Chicago now felt like the most expensive mistake of my life. Nathan didn't gloat. He didn't need to. His victory was in the quiet, methodical way he rebuilt our children's lives without me. He hired a full-time nanny, enrolled Lucas and Sophie in therapy, created a stable environment that showed the court and our kids that he was a responsible parent. My first apartment was a tiny one-bedroom, a world away from the 6-bedroom house I once called home. Every other weekend, Lucas and Sophie would visit, but their words and affection felt measured, cautious, careful. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about trust, about the weight of choices, about the true value of family. Nathan didn't just win the divorce. He won the respect of our children by proving what real responsibility looks like. I lost everything chasing a fleeting thrill. He gained everything by choosing stability.